Continued. I only have a 5-minute limit. Anyway, you got Daisy. She's pretty. And on the surface, she seems really shallow. But is she? Next, we have the filthy rich, despicable, racist, dim witted, lecherous, and evil villain character, Tom Buchanan. That's Daisy's husband. This picture of a guy from Yale kind of is what I'm picturing when I think of Tom. Here's a great quote about him. But you'll see, he sucks, and he is an excellent, again, everything is symbolic. He's an excellent symbolic figure of what's wrong with wealthy white Americans all the time, but also in the 1920s. Also, third reason why this book is so famous and well known is it has this really interesting, complicated double love triangle setup. I don't really want to give away the plot that much, but you can see many people involved, many triangles. Also, maybe it's a complicated love triangle situation, but it's also a classic love story. You can see our two Gatsbys and our two Daisies doing their love there. Five, another big reason why it's famous, this is a stylistic masterpiece. This is writing in its finest form. Basically, it's so celebrated for the prose. Like each sentence is a little masterpiece, and he carefully, for years, worked to make every piece of this book meaningful, and it's often called like a gem of literature. So, some final things to know before we actually get into the book itself. Our setting, again, symbolic like everything else. It's in Long Island in these fictitious places called the Eggs, East Egg and West Egg. And then they kind of travel back and forth between Long Island and New York City as they do various parties. Because, like, all you did in the 20s is party, apparently. Anyway, on the way to New York City, you pass a lot of interesting things that imply that there's something wrong with humanity, like the Valley of Ashes. Here's our map. We'll look closer at the map when we actually get into the book, but this is like a zoom in of Long Island essentially. So this is Manhattan, and then this is Long Island, and these are the eggs, which don't actually exist, but they're cool. So another thing to know about the book is the point of view. So another reason why this is considered so complex is that this book is about, hence the title, Gatsby, but it's not told by Gatsby. It's told by a guy who's watching Gatsby named Nick. And this is kind of going to be a throwback to The Catcher in the Rye, because at least in the modern day Great Gatsby movie, Nick is telling us this story from a mental hospital bed, like talking to his psychiatrist about this crazy experience he had, just like how Holden in Catcher in the Rye, is telling us his story from a mental hospital bed. So our structure, oh yeah, I just talked about it, but it's retrospective. And it's all basically a flashback, but a lot of the flashbacks are out of order. So that style that I keep referring to over and over, highly polished. It took him 3 years to write. This book is not that long. It took him 3 years to write this. It's rewritten over and over and over again. Everything is carefully chosen. This is a profile of F. Scott Fitzgerald. And our final thought. Fitzgerald is considered by many to be the most beautiful American writer, not in looks, although he does look pretty dashing, but in terms of style. So critics everywhere call his prose luxurious. It's often kind of hot, like sexy. He often has vivid word choice, figurative language. The characterization and setting descriptions really help paint a picture. The dialogue, no dialogue in this book is pointless. Everything that someone says means something. And it's synergistically spectacular. So here's a quote about F. Scott Fitzgerald. I will leave that there and figure out how to close my screen sharing thing. And that was your walkthrough to The Great Gatsby.